Hey, Leslie, thanks for taking the time today. Appreciate it. We talked to Levi last week, and he said that there's been a different mindset to this defense. There's a do it now mindset. Just because you guys return so many starters, you bring in some great new pieces to this defense. So, what has your message been to your defense in this training camp heading into this season?
Good morning, Maddie. We're just trying to get better every day. That's been my message to the guys. I mean, it's everything about this season is just so different than anything we've ever experienced. And so because of that, the goal is just day by day to try to get better. You're trying to make up time from some of the things you missed this off season. And if we can get better every day, it'll help us to be able to reach our goals as a defense.
And how have you seen some of these new players grab hold of the defense now that you guys are doing walkthroughs and things like that, and you're through this ramp up period, putting on the pads on next week?
The guys have really done well. Our coaches did a terrific job of introducing this system to them during the off season on the Zoom format, and to be able to come now and walk through some of the things we've been talking about. It seems like the new guys have really integrated themselves extremely well with the past guys on our team, and they seem to have a good feel for what we're asking them to do. Now, we're going to, for the first time, begin to start going fast now, so we'll really find some things out, and even more so once we put pads on.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yes, no problem.
Hi, Coach Sal Capaccio, WGR Radio. Great to see you.
Good morning, Sal.
I want to ask you about, going through this before in your life in football. 82, you were a player, 9-week strike. 2011, you guys had shortened off season because of the lockout. Can you draw from those experiences and maybe even help players as far as, how to keep their bodies in shape, keep their minds right? And does it give you a little bit more of a calming aspect in your own way that, you have been through this before?
Yeah, so it's funny you bring up the 82 season. We had Coach Joe Gibbs to come in and talk to our staff on Zoom during the off season about that 82 season. Of course, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So we wanted to get a feel from him, what it was like, the preparation, all the time apart as a staff from your players, kind of what we've gone through. And then once you come back together, what's the message to the guys? And he did a really, really good job of just impressing upon all of us just to embrace this moment and look at it as an opportunity, because some teams aren't going to prepare as well as other teams. And we want to be one of those teams who's best prepared, and that gives you the best chance to succeed. So, we tried to draw on some of those experiences of what we went through in 82 and what we experienced in 2011 as well, and try to incorporate that into this without having any sense of panic, because eventually things will work out. And the teams that do embrace this and approach it the right way, those are the teams that will have the best chance to succeed in this, new environment.
And just to clarify, I know that there was no Zoom in 1982. So you met Joe Gibbs. He was on a Zoom call with the entire team this offseason, basically?
With our coaching staff.
Gotcha. Thank you, Coach.
Yes, no problem.
Hey, Leslie, John Scott. Good to see you.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Good. Can't complain. It's actually, again, good to see you. It's been a bit. I wanted to ask you about the cornerback competition. The two main guys, it appears, would be Levi Wallace and Josh Norman. How do you size up that competition?
Well, with the experience that Josh brings to the table, that really sets him apart in a lot of ways. But he's coming in with a chip on his shoulder. Things didn't end the way he wanted them to end in Washington. So hopefully that'll bode well for us. Levi has done a really good job for us. He's continued to improve every year. And so I think it's going to be a really good competition, and we're going to benefit from that competition. Looking forward to when we start going fast, when we get the pads on, and just see how it all plays out.
What sort of conversations have you had with Levi now that this is the second straight year he's held the job and now had to see guys be brought in by the organization and come to camp and fight to keep what was his?
Yeah, myself and John Butler and the rest of our defensive staff, we always talk to Levi. People are going to look at him as the undrafted free agent. So you're going to find yourself in these situations, maybe year in and year out. Someone trying to come in and say, I can beat out the undrafted free agent. And so I think that just really emboldens Levi to work hard and have a desire to show everybody, maybe I wasn't drafted, but I'm as good as anybody else that you're going to bring in or better. And, he practices that way and he plays that way, and it's good for us. I mean, he understands I can't ever relax.
Thanks.
Okay, John.
Hey, Leslie, Heather Prusak here. Good to see you. Hope all is well.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about how difficult was that to have those conversations with Star and EJ when they decided to opt out this season?
Yeah, it was tough to hear the news, and I really, all of us are very supportive of both of those guys and what they're going through and having to make that decision. And that was the message I wanted to convey, that we're very supportive. We understand and we want the best for you and your family, and just wishing the best for them. It was not an easy decision for either one of them, and we wish them the best.
And then just one more question for you. I know Ed Oliver had a tough off season with, the arrest and everything, but what have your conversations been like with him, just getting over that mentally, and then also on the football field, building off of that strong second half of last season that we saw?
Yeah, Heidi, early on, when the news came out and he shared his side of the story with me, I felt really good in what he had shared with me, and just hoping that it'll play out the way he described, and sure enough, it did. And so when the news came that he had been exonerated, it just was a sense of relief, and his attitude, his approach to it, because all along he knew that he hadn't done some of the things that were out there, and just the way he handled it really made me proud of him, made our organization proud. He's using this as a teachable moment for others who may find themselves in a compromising position. And so I'm really, really proud of the way Ed has handled this entire matter. As far as his growth, we're looking forward to him being able to build on that, what happened during the second half of his first season. There's been a lot of growth throughout this off season, probably more from a maturity standpoint as a person. Really can't say athletically because we haven't had a way to quantify that yet, but we'll see that in the days to come. But I can sense that maturity as a man, and that's going to be good for us and good for our organization.
Thanks, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Hi, Leslie. Matt Fairburn here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sticking on that defensive line, I'm curious what you've seen out of Harrison Phillips this offseason. Obviously, he'll have a pretty big role with Star's opt-out. How's he looking, and what's his attitude been like through the rehab process?
Yeah, so far, Matt, in these walkthroughs, he's done everything that we would expect him to do. We gave him a little bit of a break yesterday, took some time off to kind of get him ramped up for today. But so far, so good. Now, the real test for him will be once we get the pads on and we're going live and he's in situations where he has to really take power and be able to plant and drive and push off and those kind of things. So up to this point, for what we've done, it's been great. But the true test will come in a few days.
How much what can you say about where he left off and what it would mean to your defense if he's able to be back to that level he was before he got hurt?
Man, he was playing so well for us. Prior to that injury, he had a great training camp and was off to a good start in the regular season, really putting some pressure on the quarterback from the inside, which you always need. And so if he can build on that, if he can get back to where he was, and it'll be so good for our defense if he can. And we're all pulling for him for obvious reasons. And he's worked extremely hard this offseason. I've talked to Nate Bresky, our athletic trainer, a number of times about Harry and where he is, and just seeing his development. If he can get back to where he was, it'll be terrific for our defense.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome, Matt.
Hi, Leslie. Good morning. Jay Skursky with the Buffalo News. Cornerback depth in light of EJ Gaines deciding to opt out, that's an issue that you can never have enough, right? Healthy cornerbacks, bodies at that spot. With that in mind, Dane Jackson, I know it's very limited in terms of what you've seen on the field from him, but he spent some time on the COVID list and he's back now. You guys prioritize making him a draft pick. What do you think is reasonable for expectations for him, and where do you see him maybe fitting into this picture, knowing, again, of course, that you haven't seen much of him on the field to this point?
Yeah, it's such a wild card, Jay, without having been around him during the off season to get him through an off season program. But if he could come in and give us some quality snaps in a backup role, that would be terrific, which would mean that our starters are staying healthy and they're on the field, and we're able to develop him as a pro. That would be optimal. Now, with the way things are, he may end up having to play at some point in games, and we're going to try to prepare him to do that. But we have not had much exposure to him, as you mentioned. But we're going to prepare him to be ready to play. That's our goal, and that'll start in earnest on the field today and in the days to come when we put pads on. But it would be really good for us if we got him to the point where he was confident enough to go into a game and play at a high level.
To have him, on the COVID list and then come off, what have your conversations been like with him, just going through that experience that, is such a real thing that we're all kind of facing. And, is it been mental too, in terms of just, you guys are going through the protocols every day to get into the building and that kind of thing. What was that like for him to go through?
Yeah, it's a good question. And what I've tried to do is just talk with him daily and just get a feel for, where he is mentally, as well as how does he feel physically. And of course, our trainers and doctors are doing the same thing. And his attitude has been great. He's really focused on the field and in the classroom and trying to learn and try to go out on the field and perform. So everything has been going well with all things considered at this point. But his attitude and approach has been terrific.
Thanks, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Leslie.
Good morning. Good morning, Marcus. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad, man. Can't complain. I'm glad we can finally get back to work here. But I know it's so early in the process for you, but what have you noticed about how Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison can play off of each other, and what do they bring as a combination to this defense?
Well, Marcel, these are two very established NFL pros who've had terrific careers in our league. And, we just want them to build on what they've accomplished up to this point. And we're challenging the guys to, all our guys, to make this a career year. And if those guys can get back to their previous form, coming off of an off season that was so different than any other that we've ever experienced, that's going to be good for our defense, because they've had, they put up some big numbers in the course of their careers. So we're excited about having both of them, and looking forward to their being on the field together. Their attitudes and approach amongst each other have been really, really good. They are both very good pros, so we're excited to have them.
And a quick follow-up, both of them at the start of their careers, they had guys like Robert Mathis to look up to and learn from. What is the impact of their presence going to be on a guy like AJ Epinesa, who so much is riding on to develop, for this defense?
Yeah, I think, Marcel, if you were to talk to AJ about it, he would tell you the benefits are enormous, having a chance to be around Jerry, to be around Mario. And that's the same thing Darryl Johnson said, when I've had a chance to talk with him about it. His growth, just watching Jerry's practice habits, how he conducts himself in the meetings, has been terrific for him. And I'm sure it'll be the same way for AJ, just watching two very accomplished pros and how they approach, everything about this business is going to help AJ tremendously.
Hey, thanks again, Leslie. Good to see you.
You too.
Okay, Leslie, Mark Gaughan here. Thanks for joining us. The question is the challenge you face in sorting out reps here over the next 3 weeks. The thought being, how are you going to sort out for instance, who's the second, third, fourth best person behind Tremaine Edmonds? Who's the second, third, fourth best person behind Matt Milano? You got 3 weeks of training camp before Jets week starts. I presume you want to get Milano and Edmonds as more reps, not less. They got to get ready in 3 weeks. And so the questions are, how much harder is going to be to make roster decisions this year, particularly at the back end of the roster? Do starters really need a lot of the reps? And are you doing anything differently in practice this year, since there's no preseason games, to make sure Dane Jackson gets 8 snaps against Stefan, so you can make sure you get a good evaluation?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Mark, because that's exactly the dilemma that we've been talking about all along, being able to properly evaluate this roster. And then you consider the fact that you're down from 90 to 80 guys. So the rep count situation really makes a difference. And you can't just take the approach that we've taken when we were up at St. John's Fisher, because the numbers are a lot different. So it's a little bit of a dilemma, but it's something that we have to be able to figure out, because there are so many factors that go into having your backups properly prepared. You just don't know if you're going to lose someone for circumstances that are completely out of their control beyond an injury on the field. So we've got to make sure we're giving those young guys their reps, and at the same time getting the vets the reps that they need to be prepared for September 13th. So it's something that we're trying to balance and trying to work through as we go. We think we have a pretty good plan, but we'll tweak that as we need to. But it's going to be important for us to strike that balance, the proper number of reps for evaluations, and yet being able to get our veterans the reps they need as well. And then the other part of that, because you don't have preseason games, how much are you going to allow full contact in practice compared to what you would have done if you had a preseason game? So, we got to work through that as well. And I would imagine, just in talking with Sean, that we're probably going to have more full contact drills than we've had in the past for that reason. And so, you're holding your breath a little bit when you do that in practice, but it's probably something that's necessary this year. So we got to, work through all of those things, which are a little bit different than what we've had to deal with in the past.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Leslie, Matt Perino, Syracuse.com. Great to see you.
Good to see you too, Matt.
We got a chance to talk to Tremaine recently, and one of the things I miss so much about St. John Fisher is the last 2 years being able to watch him, do a lot of that side work, with Bob Babich and, with the trash cans. It always seems like he's so dialed in mentally and meticulous about, approaching the position and preparing for the season. He talked about the walkthroughs and how slow things have been going and how he appreciates that, because he feels like you need that part of it to develop too. How much has he grown the last 2 years, and how impressive is that part of it for him that he's able to be so mature about how he approaches the position?
Yeah, his maturation from our first season to the second was incredible, and we expect that to continue. It's unfortunate we haven't been able to be together during the off season to work on some of those things from a fundamental standpoint that you like to work on. But his growth, even in these walkthroughs that we've had, you can see it. I mean, he's much more comfortable, much more at ease with what we're asking him to do. His leadership qualities are beginning to show even more in his third season. So, which is really good for our defense. But you're right about his approach and how much of a pro he is with the work he puts in beyond what we do in our 11-on-11 drills or our small group work, but just individually with his position coach, Bob Babich. You see his hunger and his desire to grow and develop as a player. And I mean, he still approaches it like he's a rookie when it comes to his work ethic. I'm just soaking it all in and just asking for more. And that's really good for us because he's still a very young player. There's still a lot of room for growth, and he knows that, and he wants to grow. So we'll see how things go over the course of these next few weeks as we prepare for our first regular season game.
And I know A.J. Klein said that, he's coming in here to be his own guy. And I know a lot of fans probably think Lorenzo Alexander out, A.J. Klein in. But in your eyes, how does A.J. Klein fit in, with what you guys are going to do on defense?
Well, AJ has had some experience in this system, back with Sean in Carolina. So that's going to help him extremely a lot. And he's done a good job of integrating himself in the linebackers room. He's one of those guys who's shown some humility, not coming in and being a veteran player and saying, follow me. I'm going to lead in this area, lead in it. That hasn't been the case. He's come in, kind of found his spot, talks when he needs to talk, listens when he needs to listen. And that's been a really good approach for AJ and for our linebackers room and our defense as well. So I think his experience will help us. He's been on some good teams, coming from a team that played extremely well down in New Orleans. And I think that veteran leadership will bode well for our defense.
Thanks, Leslie. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Leslie. Sal Majorana over here in Rochester.
Good morning, Sal.
Good to see you. Hey, I got a couple things for you, just real quick. AJ Epinesa, really all the rookies, but AJ Epinesa in particular, how difficult is it going to be early in the season for him to really make an impact in that rotation without having so much of this offseason work, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely provides challenges for any rookies in our league this year to go through what they've gone through. But AJ, he has done a terrific job and did a terrific job in our Zoom meetings and spending time with Eric Washington and really getting a feel for our defense. And you could see that when we got on the field and began to do our walkthroughs. I mean, it wasn't like he wasn't paying attention. He was paying attention. He was on top of the details of all the things we had taken him through. So that encourages you as a coach. I mean, he's a guy who's a fast learner, and he can translate that from the classroom to the field. Now, until we get the pads on, until we start moving around and doing some things, you really don't know how much he or the other rookies are going to be able to help you in 2020. But we'll find that out in the next few days.
And the other thing I had for you was the backup linebacker position. You're pretty set with your top three, but it looks like it's really going to be interesting. All these young kids you have in those backup spots. How do you manage to facilitate all that with such limited time here?
Yeah, that's going to be a big deal. And special teams is going to probably play a big role in that, Sal, for sure. Heath Farwell is going to need those backup linebackers to really be difference makers on special teams. So that'll play into who makes our team. And, of course, we're going to be evaluating them on defense, but they're going to have a big role on special teams if you're a backup linebacker. So we'll see how that unfolds as the days come.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you.
Hey, Leslie, Josh Reed, how are you? Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Josh.
Good. How important is structure and just kind of being disciplined and really meticulous during this time because of, we talked about the scrunch schedule. Sean seems like a guy who is if something is supposed to happen at 10:13, it happens at 10:13. How important is that?
Yeah, the structure part of it is extremely important for players. I mean, they like to get into a routine. Now, I say that, but this has been anything but routine, what we've gone through. But I think now that we're getting ready to get into the pads, we'll begin to get into a little bit more of a routine, and players kind of thrive on that. I mean, they kind of expect that. And so I think that'll help all of us once we get settled into a routine to start preparing for the regular season. And that's what we're about to enter into, which I think will be good for everyone.
One last one. Cam Lewis was having a pretty nice preseason last year until the concussion. I had a chance to talk to him a couple months ago, and he really enjoyed the Zoom meetings because he really felt like he was learning a ton. What have you seen in his development?
Yeah, you're right, Josh. He was a guy who was really coming along for us, and unfortunately, got injured. And so we're looking forward to seeing him pick up where he left off at and just keep improving and become a part of the conversation for that nickel spot, whether it be as a backup or as a guy who's helping us on special teams. And, we'll see how it unfolds. Once we get the pads on and we start the contact, is he a guy who can move past the concussion, or does that still linger mentally as well? So, we'll find that out.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, I hope you can hear me through the mask here. I'm not in a spot where I could really take it off, so I apologize for that. Just with respect to the time constraints you're working with and the defensive tackle spot left open by Starr's absence, How much does that force you to tweak the way in which you make that decision? Whether, you might lean towards going with a player, what they are and what they give you, as opposed to maybe wanting to take a longer look at a player who looks like they might be coming on, but you don't have the time to wait on them. So just weighing all of those factors in putting a guy in the position left open by Star.
Yeah, it's one of the things, Chris, that Eric Washington and I have talked about is with that position, making it an open competition, similar to what we're doing at the right corner spot, letting those guys compete. Well, the same thing will be true at that nose tackle position, as we are trying to see the progress that Harry makes and trying to get a chance to take a look at Quentin Jefferson, maybe looking at a Vernon Butler in that area. But just to, creating a rotation so we can get a competition going, and then just let the best man win. And, we'll see how it all plays out.